बढ़ाओ दीजो आत्म ज्ञान हमारा गुरुदेव गुणवंता इतनी बाता पूरी करो तो छोड़ो सारी ममता हमारा गुरुदेव गुणवंता इतनी बाता पूरी करो तो छोड़ो सारी ममता।
Jai Jinendra and Michami Dukram to everyone this evening. After a hugely successful run of virtual events during the Paryushan Parv, I take this opportunity on behalf of all the wonderful volunteers. With warmth and humbleness, I welcome you all to Sri Channa Vidyapeeth Jain School. My name is Kajal Shet, and I am one of the teachers here at the school. Before I do any further introductions, I would like to remind everyone of some virtual class etiquette. Please ensure that you are on mute whilst we are conducting. And if you have any questions, then you're most welcome to communicate this onto the chat function. We will try our best to answer them. So today marks the start of our first term at SCVP school. And we have all our virtual classes, children's classes, as well as the adult classes starting today. To all our new members, we welcome you to the adult class. It is where spiritual learning resides. A sense of community is created, and you will hopefully feel like this is where you belong. And here the learning never ends. SCVP school is the longest running non-sectarian Jain school, established in 1996 by Pujya Sadhvi Shri Srila P.G. Maharaj, under the guidance of Param Pujya Acharya Sri Channaji Maharaj. We are part of Veerayatan, a non-profit, non-governmental organization established in Kutch, India, that strives to uplift and empower humanity through the three jewels of humanitarian service, seva, education, siksha, and inner development, sadhana. Our school runs every Friday evenings with various children's and adults classes. So I would now like to call upon two of our students and my children, Yuvraj and Gina. Yuvraj is moving into Madhyama 2 class and Gina is from Madhyama 1 class, and they will both start by reciting the Navkar mantra. Yuvraj and Gina, if you can unmute and recite the Navkar mantra, please.
Namo Arahantanam, Namo Namo, Namo Sitanam, Namo Namo, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Namo, Namo Uvajayanam, Namo Namo, Namo Loye Sabasahunam, Namo Loye Sabasahunam. Eso panchanamokaro savvapavanasano mangalancha savvesim padamanghavei mangalam padamanghavei mangalam.
Thank you, Raj and Gina, for singing the Navkar mantra. So this week is a very special week as it is the Organ Donation Week 2020. And this year it is focusing on the changes in the law around organ donation in England. From 20th of May 2020 this year, the organ donation law changed to an opt-out system to allow more people to save more lives. The responsibility lies within each one of us to show solidarity and support in welcoming this change, this new change. Please watch the following video, which gives a little bit more information on how we can support the organ donation.
She was a very bubbly person. She used to go out and help anybody she could and talk to almost everybody. Vasanti was my wife. She was 51 when she died. She had a brain hemorrhage, as a result of which she went into a coma in the hospital, and then was transferred to the life support machine. Organ donation is something we had never considered as a family prior to her death. Myself, my son and my daughter, we discussed about organ donation after the doctors had asked us to think about it, and we came to the conclusion that organ donation would be a good thing because it will improve people's lives.
The Fajisha Festival is an ideal time for Jains to think about organ donation.
Although organ donation in England has changed to an opt-out system, you still have a choice whether you want to donate your organs.
Jain should consider doing organ donation because it's one of the principles of Jainism is ahimsa, obviously non-violence, and every living matters. We also have a principle of Jeev Daya Anukamam, which means compassion and be considerate to all the human beings.
It certainly would have been easier if Vasanti had signed up to an organ donor. Then we would not have had to make the decision ourselves.
It's fantastic that Vasanti's family agreed to organ donation, and it's a great inspiration for others in the Jain community to follow.
Please make this decision whether or not you want to donate your organs. It's also really important to register your decision. Once you've made your decision, please share this with your loved ones so they know what you want.
Knowing that Vasanti's organs were donated to a number of people, it did bring a lot of comfort to the members of our immediate family. She would be proud of that her organs had been donated to a number of people.
So that video was very inspiring, and we're very, very grateful to all those people who shared their stories as part of the video. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome our adult class teacher for today, Ketan Bhai Varia. How can I introduce him? He is, well, from one teacher to another, he is one of the most inspirational teachers that I've come across, very engaging in the way he carries out his teaching. And he will be going over chapter 8 from the book Walk With Me. And it's about ahimsa and social justice. If we can please show a warm welcome to Ketan Bhai Varia. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kajal Ben. And hopefully everybody can see the screen. So as we did before the summer break, we were going through Walk With Me. and we have now reached chapter 8. So a reminder for those who have forgotten some of the things we talked about. First of all, this book is written in first person, so it really describes Gautam Swami as Mahavir's chief disciple in his journey, in the way he perceived Mahavir, in what Mahavir told him, and what he learned and gained from him. The book is actually co-written by Acharya Chandnaji and Vastupal Parekh. In chapter 1, Gautam meets Mahavir. In chapter 2 and 3, we learn about the Sangh, and in particular ordination of women, and the story of Chandanbala. In chapter 3 to 6, we learn about Mahavir's birth and his life progress. And in chapter 7, we learned about Mahavir's spiritual progress in the 12.5 years he spent in the forest, and his accomplishment of Keval Gyan, which is supreme knowledge. So what are we going to cover? We're going to talk in this chapter about Mahavir's explanation on ahimsa and his connection to social justice. We're also going to cover intentional versus unintentional violence. What does that mean? The role of passions in violence, and the meaning of ahimsa from an active viewpoint. So as Kajal Ben said, she put it in a nice way. She said, I'm quite engaging, but actually I probably am a little bit lazy. So you'll find that you'll be doing quite a lot of the work in the next hour. So these are your learning objectives for today. Understand the nature of violence and why it can never be eliminated. Interpret the difference between intentional and unintentional violence. And reflect on what active ahimsa means. What action do we need to take to help society? So do engage with this session. Your own experience and reflection is important. We will have some exercises and group work. So we're going to use some of the tools of Zoom to break you into groups. So for those parents who've had a tough week with the children starting school, and you may have thought Friday evening is a chance to reflect, relax and wind down, I'm afraid you're in for some work. So be prepared. So let's see what Gautam Swami starts off in this chapter. And I'm also going to read some excerpts of this chapter. And we'll be starting on page 90 for those people who have access to the book. So Gautam Swami asked this question. I understand to Mahavir. I understand that our Atma is trapped in samsara, and our goal is liberation from painful cycle of life, from the painful cycle of life of birth and death. We have already achieved this goal. Then why work so hard? So what I'm going to do now is just read a little bit from the book to see what Mahavir replied. Mahavir replied, Gautam, the focus of my sadhana was Atmagyan, knowledge of self. As a result, I am completely at peace with myself. However, personal peace and Atmagyan should not be the ultimate goal of sadhana. These are simply the means to achieve a much larger goal, to alleviate the misery of all living beings. This samsara is painful. Every living being is in pain and suffering. We can feel their pain only if we are sensitive enough. Is it not selfish for us to have personal liberation or happiness as our ultimate goal? While self-liberation should be the focus of our sadhana, its goal should be to alleviate pain and suffering of all living beings. Devoting my life to freeing every living being from fear and ignorance is my greatest hope. It is the ultimate goal of my sadhana. Any sadhana that does not sensitize us to the pain and suffering of other living beings is only a meaningless ritual. Such sadhana may bring gyan, i.e. knowledge, but will not serve the larger goal of common good. So what we're going to do now is an exercise. And in this exercise, These are the two questions you have, okay? The first question you have is, to escape the cycle of life and death, how much time should we focus on ourselves versus trying to reduce violence in the world? And the second question, if time allows, is, why is Jainism sometimes perceived as a passive religion? Okay, I'm just going to stop the slide share for a second, and I'm going to put the questions, you'll see them on chat, okay? So for those who have not used the chat function, I think most of you are now aware after 6 months of the lockdown starting, there's a chat function on your screen and you should see these questions. And in a minute, what's going to happen for people who have not used this facility is that you'll find a message on your screen for you to join a room. And in that room will be 2 or 3 other people who'll be with you. What I'd like you to do is unmute and put your video on, and then discuss this question with the 2 or 3 other people that are in your room. Okay, after 5 minutes, you will find that you will rejoin back to this bigger group where we have around 42 people. Now, if you are struggling, don't worry, stay where you are, or if you're really struggling, you can stay where you are. If you find you're cut off for some reason, just rejoin in the normal way. Just rejoin the normal SCVP adult meeting link in the normal way. Okay, so this is the first time we're trying this with SCVP, so we may have 1 or 2 technical issues, but I think it's good to have a go, and I'd like you to be in smaller groups so that you can try this out. All right, okay, good luck, and you'll see a message in a second, okay?
How much time should we be spending on ourselves compared to?
Sorry, has anyone got any questions? No, okay. So you'll find that you're in a group in a second, okay? And just press yes, and the questions are on chat, which I'll just repeat before you go into your groups. To escape the cycle of life and death, how much time should we focus on ourselves versus trying to reduce violence in the world? And if you have some time, why is Jainism sometimes perceived as a passive religion? Okay, you'll get a message, just press yes, and you'll join a group. Anybody still struggling? Hasmukh Bhai, are you struggling?
I am.
Okay, do you get a message to join a room?
I think I saw room number 3.
Okay, then something went wrong. Okay, I'm going to join you to room 4, okay? You should get a message and you should be, yes, do you get it? Karuna Ben, are you still there? Karuna Ben, are you still there? Is anybody still there? Hi, for those who've just left your room, just stay there while everybody else joins. If you have had any thoughts, then please put them on chat. So if you have any answers to the question in your group, to escape the cycle of life and death, how much time should we focus on ourselves versus trying to reduce violence in the world? And why is Jainism sometimes perceived as a passive religion? So if you have any thoughts, please put them on the chat. Hi, Jai Jinendra, everybody. Michami Dukram in advance if the technology failed. You know, if you don't try these things, we never learn. So hopefully some of you had good conversations. Kajal Ben, are you there? Yeah, so just gonna ask people to put any thoughts down on the chat. So if you have any thoughts that came out from your conversations, please put them on the chat. Kajal Ben, if you could just read a few of them, that would be good. Thank you.
Sure. So if everyone can please share some of your conversations and some of your thoughts on the chat function so that we can all engage. So Ketanbai, we've had Ritu Shah. She said, be the change that you would like to be in the world.
I hope you guys realize that unless I have a few comments, we're not going to move on, because otherwise we'll have to go back into the breakout again. So I suggest you type some comments, because otherwise you just be caught with me and breakout rooms.
We've got have peace ourselves first before bringing change further on by Shandip. If you commit a good deed, then it might inspire other people to do good deeds. We've got sadhana is important to recognize yourself as a soul, but only then you have true compassion and can continuously feel the pain of others and want to do something proactively. When we help to reduce violence in the world, we are helping ourselves too, but helping get rid of karma from our soul. We need to change ourselves before we can help the other. We thought that you should not miss the opportunity to serve community. Jainism is passive, non-fashionable. So one of the groups has discussed that you need to be selfish to be able to take time out to reflect on your actions and how to develop.
Good.
Of course, we need to start with ourselves, but we also need to actively do a few things from society. Focus within first and then make change to the outside. Both together can be a way of life. Be a compassionate person. It is our daily lives on how we act, speak towards others. Are we getting job satisfaction by doing good or inner peace? And the last one says, ahimsa thought should be continuous, but reflection and self-reflection is very important.
Good.
Over to you.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone for sharing about that balance. And I think we had some good comments about how to make that balance work, but also how to make it interactive. So I'm going to continue with Walk With Me, and we're going to move on. So Mahavir continues. The Samosaran in Pava became a dialogue between Mahavir and a Shravak. The Shravak asked, Bhagwan, you asked for total ahimsa, but is that ever possible? Do we not kill and destroy many lives when we eat food, drink water, or breathe air? While walking, we kill many insects under our feet. How can we live without such violent activities? How can we live a totally non-violent life? Bhagwan Mahavir actually welcomed this question. The dialogue allows for a message to be better understood. You are right, Mahavir said. We do inevitably kill or hurt other living beings every day through our actions. Yet many of these activities are essential and unavoidable for our survival. And just before I carry on, it's important that, you know, this word unavoidable, because some of those things are unavoidable. And Mahavir continued, however, know that violence is essential of the two types. Violence motivated by a body, i.e. for survival, unintentional, and that motivated by a mind, which is intentional. we must understand the differences between these two. Our body's motivation is only survival, and therefore our acts of survival, regardless of our caution, are inevitable acts. Yet even in such situations, our inner bhav must always be aware of the violence we commit. So just to emphasize what Lord Mahavir is saying, is that even when we have to create acts of violence for survival, just the true nature of being aware of that is something good in itself. Mahavir continues, thus while both intentional and unintentional violence attracts more karmic bondage, our intention and the intensity of passion in a violent act determines the outcome of such bondage. Passions are like glue. They bond karmic particles to a soul. Unintentional acts, being passionless, this is just mere acts of survival, lack the glue and form weak bonds. But we must face the consequences for a lack of caution in these acts. However, such bonds can be easily broken off by seeking pardon. So for example, when we have parishan and we do pratikamar, these weak bonds are easily broken off because they are unintentional. They are done out of the need for survival, from breathing, from having to work, from having to do farming, cooking, and all of these activities. So I hope before we move on, we understand these differences between intentional and unintentional. And particularly the violence which is harmful is that's done out of passion, where our anger, greed, ego, deceit are the creators of violence. This violence attracts strong karma, and this is the thing that limits our ability to continue on our spiritual path, and also binds karma, which obviously takes time for us to shed and become a glue to our soul. Okay, I'm just going to turn this talk to the next part, which is actually about what happens externally. Okay, so we talked about our mind, we talked about intentional versus unintentional violence. And of course, we don't want to have intentional violence in terms of feeling angry at people or feeling violent towards others. But what about when it comes to injustice in the wider world? How should we act? And Mahavir starts with this very strong quote: tolerating injustice is violence. So here's your next exercise. What kind of injustice do we see around us? And should ahimsa be passive, i.e. don't harm others, or active, fight injustice? So I'm going to ask you to reflect on that. Let me just stop the screen sharing for a second. And again, you will see the question on the chat. And again, I'm going to ask you to join groups. Now, you'll be in different groups this time. So please make sure your video is on and you're not on mute. And here the question is just to repeat them. Mahavir Bhagwan says, tolerating injustice is violence. What kind of injustice do we see around us? And should ahimsa be passive, i.e. just don't harm others, or active, actually fight injustice? Okay, you'll get a message in a second to join a room. Please join your room and answer those questions. Thank you. Hi. Papa, press the button to join the room. Anybody not being able to join a breakout room yet? Anybody struggling? Okay, if you haven't been able to join a breakout room, just try and answer these questions on your own. What kind of injustice do we see around us? Should ahimsa be passive, do no harm, or active, fight injustice? Hi, Puruben. Hi, Inaben. You're on mute, but that's okay.
Sorry. Hi. Hi, Ketan. Hi.
Purnima Ben. Obviously, you managed to answer the question really quickly.
You know what happened? We forgot the second question. So my recommendation is we should be repeating the questions again and again on the
Did you not
screen.
get a message coming up?
Yeah, only once
Okay.
in 5 minutes.
Okay.
So by the time we discuss the first one, the second one, nobody looked at it.
Okay. All right.
Sorry about that.
So welcome back, everybody. Hopefully, again, the technology sort of worked. So the question we had was, Mahavir Bhagwan said, tolerating injustice is violence. And the question, that was the statement. The question was, what kind of injustice do we see around us? Should ahimsa be passive, do no harm, or active, fight injustice? So Kajal Ben, if you could ask, if you could just get some thoughts from people, that would be wonderful.
Okay, so we've got some comments coming up already. The first one is from Ritu Shah, and she's mentioned we see injustice to animals quite often. If everyone else can share what you all discussed in your groups. So we've got, we thought in our group, we have injustice towards other humans. Injustice is everywhere, isn't it? Awareness of what we do and how we act is important. We should fight against injustice without violence. For example, avoiding mass gatherings that can encourage physical violence. Rather, we can spread the word using online methods or petition. We also see injustice to other creeds, races, and sects. Injustice towards the environment. You need to learn to be tolerant first before tackling others. Injustice is everywhere at varying levels. Ingrained from forefathers and beyond, we need to change. Black Lives Matter topic, it's an example of injustice. Be an understanding person, and we need to take positive steps. Over to you, Ketan Bhai. I think we've got one more. With regards to being passive or active, we should be as active as possible, but it isn't always easy or possible. For example, when someone is making snide remarks, should you say immediately or stay calm and let the situation calm down before you try and reason with them? There are lots of injustice around us, example, discrimination between male and female pay, rich and poor. Injustice should be fought, but with ahimsa, example like Mahatma Gandhi did, he fought with ahimsa. We've got fear or injustice or both. Injustice is in basic things like using people in unfairness, consideration for other people. We need to make people aware of various injustices happening around us. Thank you to everyone.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. That's very, very good and very useful. So I'm just going to read again from from the book. But a couple of things before I read out. Let me just hide this slide for a second. Is that when I read what Mahavir Bhagwan is saying, he's absolutely saying in terms of fighting injustice, doing it without anger, greed, deceit, and jealousy, and these negative emotions. So as Gandhi has shown, we can fight injustice without those harmful passions. Okay, so as I read this out, please see that in that context. That's what Mahavir Bhagwan is trying to tell us. Once the subtle meaning of violence is clear, it is easy to realize that violence is widespread in our society. Telling a lie is violence. Exploiting others is violence. Depriving someone of his livelihood or legitimate rights is violence. Ignoring the pain and suffering of others is violence. Treating others as inferior is violence. And denying education or knowledge to someone is also violence. Similarly, child poverty, child labor, caste, gender discrimination are acts of social violence. People were excited to see the sermon turn towards more practical issues. A Shravak got up and asked, Bhagwan, you say that tolerating social injustices is violence. However, discrimination, poverty, and exploitation are deeply rooted in our society. We cannot challenge the entire society. All we can do is follow personal nonviolence. So the Shravak here is saying, look, I'll do what, I'll try and be nonviolent, but these problems in society are always going to remain. In fact, they're still here with us now. And that's for others to sort out. I will just follow my duties and do my vows and just be nonviolent. However, as I continue what Bhagwan said, Mahavir was forthright and direct. He said, non-violence is not for the cowards, nor is it for those who remain passive in the face of violence and injustice. It is true that violence is deep-rooted in our society. We have accepted poverty, discrimination, and animal sacrifice to be part of life. However, remember that our mind and its lack of empathy and sensitivity to violence empowers this kind of himsa, violence. And what Mahavir Bhagwan is saying here is that when we do nothing, when we should, this itself is creating violence. This is bhav himsa, he continues. It can be stopped only by changing the bhav or mental attitude of people. Eradicating discrimination, poverty, ignorance, and cruel practices requires shifting the mindsets of people. Ahimsa is a practical concept because it is the basic nature of our conscience. Mahavir finishes by saying, so it is possible to turn around the entire society by appealing to people's conscience. So I just wanted to reflect how, in the words of Acharya Shi, in her understanding what Mahavir Bhagwan would have said at the time, how strong he is around us being active without letting our passions go loose to try and fight injustice. And maybe as Jains, sometimes we act in a way where maybe our community, maybe our family is doing fine. We are not causing harm. And that's maybe where we stop. And we don't think about the society as at large. We talk about Black Lives Matter. We don't think about other races, other peoples of other faith, because we're so, we kind of identify with just our religion and not necessarily the wider world. And I think what Mahavir is saying, from what I can read, is that if we don't do things to help society at large, and if you remember, he's talking about denying education and knowledge to others, denying people of their livelihood. These things themselves are violence. How often do we, maybe out of selfishness, don't support other people in their career, or don't help them move up in their career, or don't pass on the knowledge that would be of benefit to others? This, according to Mahavir Bhagwan, is a kind of violence. And these were the last words that he spoke. So we are going to finish off with some self-reflection. You'll be pleased to know that there are no breakout groups now. What I want you to do is I'm just going to ask everybody to remain on mute for 30 seconds to a minute, and ask yourself in that reflection time, maybe with your eyes closed, what practical steps are you going to make? Because this can only start if each one of us decides to make 1 or 2 or 3 practical steps. to be active in ahimsa. So if I can ask you to reflect for a minute, I'll let you know when the minute is up. Just close your eyes, remain on mute, and please reflect. And I'll be doing the same. Okay, that's my my clock. So hopefully you've had some time to reflect and write down your personal thoughts. Okay, Kajal Ben, I'm happy to take any questions. And I know there's some other SCVP teachers here as well. In case the questions are too difficult, I'll hand over to them. But yes, I'm happy to take any questions, Kajal Ben.
Excellent. Thank you, Ketanbai. That was a really well planned out first session. I'm sure we can all say, I can say on behalf of everyone probably enjoyed the breakout rooms quite well because we were able to interact, just like how we do at the school physically when we're in a hall. So can I invite people who would like to ask any questions to Ketanbai regarding today's session? You can put your question on the chat function, or you can unmute and you can ask yourself. So we've got Ritu Shah, who has who's asking if can we buy the book? Is it available on Amazon?
We can do better than that. I'll send you the links to the book. In fact, they'll be in the presentation. So they're available on internet as PDF. And yeah, just the second question, yeah, PowerPoint, the slides will be sent. So yeah, any more, Kajal Ben?
No, and I was just going to say, I think we will also be sharing the link to the book on the SCVP WhatsApp learning group as well. Any further questions?
I see there's one here, Kajal Ben, from Shandipai.
Yeah. So we've got Shandipai. Do you want to ask the question yourself?
So Ketanbai, just your thoughts on that. Does the spoken word or your mouth do more damage than physical actions?
I'm going to ask you that question back, but I think everyone would agree that yes, the answer is yes, isn't it? You know, the answer is definitely yes. How many times have we, if you look at some of the prejudices we have ourselves, how many times have we said something that, you know, can cause immense harm to others, right? You know, whether we've you know, 40, 50 years ago, we would use references to women in a negative way, sometimes other races. These things, all of these things cause immense damage, right? And if you look at the state of politics now, you know, some of the words that I use cause immense damage to all kinds of people.
So is it that we are weaker, do you think?
We are weaker because of
the damage it's causing us, or are we just more aware now that it's causing damage unlike before, or it's not brushed under the carpet as much?
Yeah, I think my view is that all of these things have always been known about, right? But we just we accepted certain things, right? We accepted certain things, and we just you know, tolerated it, for want of a better word, when we shouldn't have. And as we get more and more information, as society changes, we learn that certain things that we just accepted, we shouldn't, because it does do damage. You know, it does do damage. If you know, we are, as Indians, we are born with a very rich cultural heritage, but some people, you know, many races have struggled for many generations, and unless we recognize that struggle, we are just creating more violence for those groups of people, and we should recognize it.
Ketan Bhai, we have one more question. Ritu, do you want to unmute and ask yourself the question? If you can please unmute.
Yes, sorry, it was actually my husband, Sabal. I'm a very avid reader, so I just wonder if there are any books that people can recommend to improve our ability to tolerate other people's views and to be more perceptive of other people's feelings. So any books that you can recommend?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many books. One book is that we are studying now is Amar Vani, which is written by Amar Muniji, which again, I'll send you the link, but it's very much written in the Stephen Covey style. I would really recommend you read that book, but I'm sure everyone out there probably knows more books than I do. So if anyone's got any suggestions, please put it on chat.
Sure.
Any final questions, Kajal Ben?
Yep, we've got Kirti. Can you please unmute and ask your question?
Hi, it's me, Anuja. First of all, thank you for the wonderful presentation, very motivational. But often, you know, it's very difficult to get inner peace or to find inner peace. And when there are lots of things going on in our life, you know, lots of stresses, you know, work, family, etc. Is it better then to focus on doing something physical, you know, doing good in the world, rather than, you know, trying to find that inner peace, which might be difficult?
Yeah, so Anuja, this is a balanced question, isn't it? You know, I would say that, you know, that balance needs to be there in your life, because if you don't have day-to-day peace, how can you help others? And even if you are helping others, you are then doing it with some sort of an attachment, right? Because you want to maybe escape from your problems, or you want some appreciation because, you know, you're fed up. You think, I'll go and help, and then I'll get a lot of appreciation. That'll make me feel good. So there's an attachment with that. You know, from my point of view, as Amamuni, Mahir Bhagwan says, Amamuji says the same thing as well, is that you know, it is very important to be active, but be active in an intelligent, you know, detached way, where you think about what you're going to do and you do it, and then there's no expectation of return. And it's surprising how wonderful that makes you feel when you do that, because there's no return, you're not looking for any thanks, and you feel wonderful inside. And, you know, the world goes round, and these things kind of, these seeds you plant, you know, always come back in some positive way to you. I don't know why and how, but they always do in my experience.
Thank you.
Great. Kajaban, I think we're running out of time. So if you don't mind, I just wanted to share the last, I just wanted to share the presentation one more time, just to finish off. 1 second. I can see the presentation. Oh, here it is. Okay. All I was going to say is always good to make sure we finish off with some learning objectives. So hopefully we understand the nature of violence and why it can't be eliminated. And the reason it can't be eliminated is survival. You know, for a body to survive, there is going to be violence. Hopefully understand the difference between intentional and unintentional violence. Intention is very much caused with the mind, with a very strong intention, and our passions are involved. And reflect on this balance of what actions or ahimsa means, this balance of passive and active, and why, if we really want to carry out ahimsa, there has to be some active ahimsa in our life. These are the two books that I mentioned. They'll be out on the PowerPoint, so you can see both of those available in PDF, so you can follow up. Jai Janendra, and thank you. And Michami Dukram, I'm sure I made a mistake, so Michami Dukram, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ketan Bhai. That was a very informative lecture today, and thank you for rounding it up with the objectives and the whole lecture. So we will end the session with by just informing you about next week's class. The topic will be War and Peace from the same book, and Sandip Bhai will be doing the talk, giving the lecture for next week. So if we can all end, thank you for joining today's lecture. Thank you for staying till the end. We will end by reciting the Manglik, and there will be a quick poll after the Manglik. If you can please complete, your feedback will be greatly appreciated. Chattari Mangalam, Arihanta Mangalam, Siddha Mangalam, Sahu Mangalam, Kevali Panatto Dhammo Mangalam, Chattari Luguttama, Arihanta Luguttama, Siddha Luguttama, Sahu Luguttama, Kevali Panatto Dhammo Luguttamo, Chattari Saranam Pavachami, Arihante Saranam Pavachami, Siddhe Saranam Pavachami, Sahu Saranam Pavachami, Kevali Panatam Dhammam Saranam Pavachami. Thank you for joining us. If we can please complete the poll, and we'll see you next week. Okay, I think everyone's left apart from us.
Well done, Shandip. Well done, Jitendra. You made it past the first one.
Well
This was
done,
all about.
Ketan.
This was all about you, actually.
Hey.
Well done, everyone. Really good.
Hi guys, well done, well done.
Look, he's just joined us. Nilesh, you can turn the lights off now in the hall. And
You can stop the YouTube now. Actually, whoever's got the YouTube, you can just stop that.
I think Ketan's host. Can you do it, Ketan? No.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
I apologize. Let me SCVP London. I made you host because I'm not sure how you